You're in tune to the FuseBox Radio Broadcast.
Turn the music up inside my session. These folks gotta hear my message.
Bringing balanced black radio to the masses.
All right, everybody. This is the FuseBox Radio Broadcast. DJ Fusion of Raw Black Hawk. This is something that we wanted to sit back and record because we were actually talking offline for a minute. And I know on the internet a few days ago, there was an article in regard to Leslie Jones and the status she put up on Twitter. Like, she came back from the gym, all this other type of stuff. And she had a little status talking about this. Like, I'm summarizing it. But she's like, I know this is a little deep, but, you know, sometimes I wonder what I'm doing this for. You know, it's kind of hard out here dating and stuff like that. I may die alone. Now, it's one of those things, you know, you always capture a moment when you're on social media or whatever, right? Because even a few days after, which is like, you know, I appreciate people, you know, reaching out and stuff like she's like, I'm feeling cool and everything, but you have moments sometimes. The interesting thing to me about all of the interaction with that, besides the fact that she made that statement, was the feedback that came from it. Because I'm going to have the Black Hawk lead this off at first after I do this summary. But it's one of those joints, you know, she's a darker skinned black woman, kind of tall, successful, however. You know, some people are like, she ain't the model type, but, you know, she's a decent looking broad. And what killed me was you had a bunch of people try to be there like, well, she ain't with nobody, you know, because how she looks and how she's loud or whatever, or trying to dismiss the fact that she had a vulnerability moment. And before I get into my part of stuff, because mine's going to be a little long, like, I personally just felt that shit was fucked up. But I mean, again, the Black Hawk and I were talking offline, and we're like, let's get the recording on and talk about this. I'd love to hear your feedback on this, yo.
Well, one of the things that I had heard about first was the comment that Beyonce's father was made about he didn't, you know, about the lighter skinned girls being more popular because they're lighter skinned. And I was very thankful that a person in his position and his influence and I guess history in the music industry and in life, and said that because he would be heard more than maybe other people. So that was cool. And so the Leslie, the Leslie Jones, I had just heard about that not that long ago. And then, and the thing that got me was the response, I think, that people had said or whatever, you know, which, you know, responsive, you know, when people bring up the physical aspect, you know, those people in a way do you a favor, because they really let you kind of know that those type of people you shouldn't be around, because that's not what you say to a person in reference to that, because they're putting themselves out to be vulnerable. So you're telling them something. So I guess because we're in a synthetic age when people feel they can get, you know, tummy tucks or plastic surgery and then everything is whatever, you know, that, oh, well, whatever, well, maybe you can get this done. Well, you know, or maybe you can go within and realize that most of these people are dirtbags. So, and there's people who are pretty and who ain't pretty, who ain't with nobody, or who are in relationships that they don't necessarily like to be in. You see what I'm saying? So, so i.e., they're not necessarily happy in I guess it may be in what they thought that they would be in instances of male-female relationships. So, you know, I mean, that, and beauty is an eye beholder, you know. So I've seen people in relationships who were married who, it was up to you to what you felt on that, you know what I'm saying? So, and she's just going through something I think a lot of women are going through, and men. And so, she's not unique in that way. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, there's a lot of sisters that ain't with people. And, you know, and if you're a sister that has standards and one or whatever, you know, it's hard, because this is for the brothers who have standards. Ain't a boatload of us, but they're there, you know, so, and, you know, there's a difference between having standards and you just having a dry spell. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, well, you're just mad because you're not, really whatever. And, and it's another thing when you're able to get into things and you're like, well, no, I want to kind of, because, things should be whatever. And, that's hard to do. And, but it's, there is the ability, because, I'm on the type of, if there's too much I have to see you in a couple of days, because, there's certain things, individuals don't necessarily want to always have to go through, so therefore individuals sometimes end up being alone. As far as having people come through, that's, I think most people can get that, but as far as the something that people, because when you think about growing old, then you automatically think about somebody that loves you and gives a shit about you, cares, and most people are in it for themselves. They're around you one way and then they're trying to get a nut when they're not in front of your face. I have to say a good 90% of most men are like that. You know what I'm saying? Married, unmarried, whatever race, religion, or language. You know what I'm saying? So, there's only a few that ain't like that. So we're dealing with individuals that are more concerned about dealing with their lower natures. Lower nature doesn't just mean sex. It could mean anger. It could mean jealousy. It could mean insecurity. It could just mean doubt. Those thoughts, those harboring those energies. You know what I'm saying? Because sex is how life comes in. So that's not necessarily. It's just, I think, when it's used as a tool and to manipulate and you exhaust oneself. I ain't gonna try to be somebody to be like, oh, you got a low sun count. No, that ain't gonna be me. I was taught by the wise cats on the street a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's unfortunate, that at the end of the day, that's why I'm into some of the things, because you need to have your mind go places. Understand that this is a wretched place. And so if you're a good person, that, you're not going to be whatever. And we're getting more synthetic as the times go past. So, should no human being, especially American black women, necessarily feel that way, because, we're hated the most because we're the most special. You know what I'm saying? And so, and to have standards and be the most special is, like even the, that's a different road. You know what I'm saying? That's more of a narrow. That isn't the wide, broad road that they say in the scriptures that the multitude is going. It's the narrow road that the evolved people are walking on. People that love, people that not just people view as equals, people that want to be your friend and don't necessarily want you for nothing but your friendship. Like kids, like children. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's why most of my male dudes that I know that I'm friends with are dudes that I knew when we were kids. And nobody had a job yet. And nobody was basing it on, getting a job through you or getting a woman through you. It was just more or less of, that innocent thing. And that's the type of love or connection that is real and it has to be proven. And so, but yeah, I'm not gonna go much on too long to that, but everybody's going through some things, and you have to, black people are afterlife people. So, and we're this life people, and we're past life people, and so, this is just we're spiritual beings have a human experience. God's trying to be better men, not the reverse. So it's, we just, have to, this is we want to have that comfort in this realm because we're in it. Mm-hmm. But, and I think people will get it, but, it's more or less of, some of us, are gonna have to work harder to get it than others. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, unfortunately, in some ways that could be better because, maybe you have a greater thing you need to do and don't need to be distracted by foul spirits or people that can't get it together, laggards that can't necessarily get it together. Like, and then there also plays to that, that thing when people were saying that thing about, using we hadn't spoke about this, but this goes in line with that about that company used, having that monkey thing on that black boy's t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And he was dark-skinned boy.
Yes.
H&M joint. What was interesting, they showed, and also there was another one that showed pyramids, and it said slavery gets it done. It was interesting they had pyramids on there. Black people black people in that part of the world in Africa didn't need slaves. So that was part of that biblical fairy tale that was advanced. They didn't need that. They were highly advanced, highly advanced scientists that didn't need that. So almost implied that they need that. And also the black thing in relation to that being, or in like the monkey thing. When if anything related coming out of this outfit, or for me related to people being monkeys, it was related to their spiritual and their mental and emotional development. You're not supposed to be 40 years old with the spiritual, emotional development of a 17-year-old. That's not how it's supposed to work. And so, it's unfortunate. That's why, like, God bless the internet for being able to bring certain lost knowledge to people, and they can kind of have understandings and, to learn, school themselves and to have a better on history, on just current events or just things in general to why things have come down to this point to where we're at today, And there is no doubt a force that is non-human, that is beyond, and it's spiritual, that has a problem with hot, sun-kissed, melanated, highly melanated, dark-skinned people. There's a non-human force that has opposed to that, let alone to these, puppet humans, And that's why it's up for us to get our minds together and to be able to, because we can have control over that, even though there are forces trying to tamper and manipulate it electronically and spiritually, but we still can have that yes or no and that will to hang on to be able to realize everything is all right. And especially if I've got dark skin and big lips, and or the template of the original human, you know what I'm saying, which was the template of energies of the Creator Most High, energies of the Creator Most High, having a human experience, having an experience other than being, but coming on this level, and then there's many consciousnesses that represent that, and whoever represents it the best will be able to come back to the one. That's how just that's ancient wisdom rolled up, whatever. But the bottom line is that one has to have their mind together, because there's, like P-Funk said, mind your one, because there's ones that want your mind, because our minds are very powerful, and they only hate us and despise us. And see, melanin, darker skinned people, especially when they have their mind right and they have their diet right, are able to absorb more energy than other people. Especially when their mind is right and everything is functioning biochemically with that through your body and through your energy centers. That's the archetype. That's the archetype human. You know what I'm saying? And there's some people that are going to use and manipulate that like parasites. And then you have to have the strong will to know that you're, like the old black folk used to say back in the day, that your body is a temple, and that you have to take care of that and watch what you put in that, and watch what things are you engaged in, because the bottom line is that we're holy fire, and having a temporary journey of an experience before we all come back to the one, or the ones who are supposed to come back to the one come back. But yeah, so that's all I'm gonna say at this moment.
No doubt, no doubt. For me, like I said, when I saw some of the responses from it, because my thing was, I felt she was terribly brave putting that feeling out.
No doubt.
We're in a society that doesn't really treasure vulnerability. I think as a whole. There's always the big, you're strong, you persevere, work for your way from your bootstraps, whatever the fuck. And then when you get into interactions, I think with certain populations in general, but particularly people of color, and especially with black folks, like there's almost like a warped version of that where the more shit you take, the more strong you are. And taking shit does make you strong, but that's not the way it always is supposed to be. So for a woman like her to put stuff out there like that, like, yo, sometimes this shit feels mad, whatever, it was very humanizing. And when I saw the original article that, pulled up, the tweets you had in the pig and other type of stuff, I put that there. I'm like, I think that's really brave. She put it out there. And I was like, I can identify with feeling like, what is the point sometimes with all of this? I don't mind saying it. I am currently not involved with somebody. I'm currently single or whatever. And I don't hate my life. My life, while unorthodox, is actually pretty damn decent. I have quality family. I have quality friends. I'm able to do creative things and actually make a bit of funds off of it, which is nice. Doing this show for this period of time probably changed the trajectory of my life in terms of how I feel comfortable mentally and physically and more.
No doubt.
And that's cool. But at the same token, I can't act like sometimes I don't get lonely as shit.
No doubt.
Like, I think one of the things that people tend to sleep on is that human interaction does have importance. It doesn't mean you got to be up under somebody all the time, or if you're in a romantic relationship, traditional or not, that it had to be all gifts, flowers, candy, and like the movies from the 50s onwards. Sometimes you just miss because there's falseness in that too. But that's a whole other conversation for another day. It's just sometimes you want to have somebody who just digs you for the person that you are. Like, this is what we're taught with relationships, or maybe the relationship that we've seen ourselves, whether it's our contemporaries, family members, and more. We're just there like, if you're in a long-term relationship with somebody, especially romantic, whether you're married or not, you gotta like and dig that person to love them if it's gonna be remotely healthy.
Word up.
That's just
Word
how
up.
it is. And because this world can be very, very harsh, I think if you're traditionally attractive, it can be very, very harsh, much less if you're maybe not by societal standards or whatever.
I agree.
The shit is rough. And we're in an age where people are accepting of more people and body types and other stuff than they have probably ever been. There's still a lot of shit that you deal with. And I was telling John on the phone before we were to tell let's go ahead and record this. During the weekend, after I saw some responses and stuff, and Super Bowl around my way in Maryland, it was like just raining, and I was finishing up doing some things before the game came on. Actually, before my people's called and the game came on, because I really didn't watch the game. I think I just saw something that was like wild ignorant, and I just got pissed when I was looking on my Facebook. You know what I mean? So I sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm going to type this story about something that happened in my life to give y'all a little idea why people can get frustrated and pissed and feel lonely sometimes. Like, no matter what you do, it seems like sometimes you might be running into a wall on that particular end. Even though you could logically and or emotionally, spiritually know everything happens on time if it's meant to happen, you still have feelings. And sometimes you get hit with the feelings. I'm going to be real short about this story because I was actually asked to put it on our Medium page, which folks can search for FuseBox Radio. You'll be able to find all of our Medium pages. It's going to be under a blog called Ramblings of a Border State Great. And it was of a situation that happened to me in my younger days, where, it was post-college and everything, I didn't necessarily have the world's best, situations on that level as a teenager. I was awkward and shit. I was still kind of stuck on that colorism bullshit from the county I grew up under. I'm short, I'm dark skinned, I was not fashionably all together, all of that type of shit. Got my shit more together in college, got more, close friends, the real friends I have today, started doing my show shit, started interacting with people more, started getting, the outside shit more together. Life was moving forward, and, some ups and downs afterwards, things occur. I ran into a fellow who was a friend, and, there was the FWB thing for a minute, or whatever. And that was just like a back and forth thing, but it was nothing serious. But, people still had their original foundation for a very long time was being a friend. And it was beyond surface shit, at least for myself, with conversations and stuff like that. And we catch up, and we're having a conversation one day. And, at the time, I wasn't involved with nobody. And, I was just there like, yeah, I'm not trying to get involved with nobody, because even if it's not necessarily serious, I want to have a good chemistry. I want to be able, to like them and all of that type of stuff, because otherwise I don't feel there's a point. And this person told me, do I think I'm attractive enough to get that? And I'll be really, really honest. It took a little while for me to confront the almost casual cruelty of it. Because I think the thing that made it bugged out was, it wasn't like it was like a stereotypical fucked up type of thing, or it's like, bitch, you ugly, or whatever. It was just like, in other words, if I'm not deemed conventionally attractive, even if I'm not ugly or whatever else, I don't deserve to have somebody just dig me for being the person I am. That fucked with me for a minute. That fucked with me for a minute. Real short statement, real simple. People, I think, even convoed and stuff afterwards. But the effect of that, I think, for me, not coming from a stranger, because strangers can be fucked up every day. Fuck them, you know what I'm saying? From somebody who...
No doubt.
Because, heads up for people who don't know, I know we babble on this show and other stuff a lot. I'm a relatively closed off and private person. It takes a while for you to get into my circle emotionally, much less any other kind of way. So, to have somebody who broached those borders, who said that to me, it jacked me up. And, that type of situation never happened with them again or whatever else. I think I was honestly in shock that they said it, because I didn't curse them out. I ain't do none of that type of thing. I just think I was really, really blown. And in a weird way, I think it was part of the last bit of me kind of having a blind trust in certain people for a while. Much as whatever else. I think a part of me had shut down. And I don't think people really realize how much that messes with people. No matter how naturally, not like the fake shit, no matter how naturally maybe good-natured you are, hard-working, supportive, whatever else, there is something that's very cruel in the aspect of, if your outside's not this way, or if I don't feel that somebody who I respect is validating your outside, you don't matter. And on top of the fact that this world's already cruel and it's hard to find genuine people to connect with, period, that can fuck with and skew your entire perspective. Because you already know there are people who are out here who are jivey and crazy. What if they don't come off that way, but there's still that element in there that's just ready to attack you? That's ready to go there and hurt you. When you get older, you get, hopefully, you get more aware of how people function in a certain way. And you also get more hopefully you also get more comfortable with yourself and what you can and can't take. And what you can and can't tolerate. Now, I'm at least a decade and some years younger than Leslie Jones. But I can't imagine, what it's like to be here, I'm doing all this stuff, and somebody who might be ain't shit still thinks I'm supposed to settle for them because I'm single and I'm dark and I'm not conventionally whatever. That shit could kiss my ass. Now, as much as sometimes that situation kind of frightens me because, I had to be honest, I'm getting older. I might not be able to biologically have kids after a minute. That, I think, kind of fucks with me a bit because I don't want to have my child be in a fucked up situation with their pops. Maybe we don't necessarily be married long or whatever else, but I don't want them to not be age shit. And, deal with, those pressures if I can avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want people to go through certain things because of a desperation move on my end. And I think there's a lot of people who think that, And then you got to worry about physical safety, male and female. Got to worry about physical safety because anybody can be fucking crazy, You got to think about your mental health. I mean, when you go home, that's supposed to be a place where you can, like, shelter from the stresses of the outside. You ain't trying to go from, you know what I mean? You ain't trying to go from stress to stress. Much less certain ways you go through life and function or whatever. And I look back at that story, which, I mean, thank you to the people on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook. Like I said, I edited this and I'm sharing it on Medium. But the people on my Facebook were just there like, holy shit. You know what I mean? I'm just there like, this is just one story. I can tell a bunch of fucked up stories. I had to get spiritually and professionally past this type of stuff that happened to me and how it affected me. But I'm like, this type of casual shit, cruelty happens to people all the time. Like, I know some very conventionally handsome or sexy men and women who, because they are trying to deal with bullshit, are single too. It's not just a look thing. And to just kind of dismiss things like a look thing ain't right.
That's right.
It's very crude, and it's really, really, really dismissive. I know some people who got the physical thing going on. They're cool. They're handling themselves and or family and chilling, but they might be just because of the type of job they have. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, you got this degree and shit. Why ain't you doing this? Well, I'm doing this because it makes me happy and I'm still able to pay my bills and shit. What the fuck does that matter? You know what I'm saying? You got a lot of people who I think get caught up in a trophy thing. And I think that's beyond your socioeconomic or political whatever status. A lot of people get caught up on the entire outside thing. And that's not to say that that's not saying that you had to be forced to be somebody you're unattracted to. Because that was one thing I was seeing a bunch of people say too. I'm just like, nobody's saying you got to be with somebody you ain't attracted to. But you don't got to be like a bitch nigga either. You know what I'm saying? Because of a certain thing. Because as you said so eloquently beforehand, looks are subjective. I mean, there's people who talk about models and say them people are ugly. You know what I'm saying? Much less anybody else. And, some of the people who are talking this shit, which is a whole other thing, I'm like, some of y'all motherfuckers ain't looking in the mirror. So you need to sell the fuck down on that end. But I think people don't realize how even smaller emotions of emotional pain, much less, other things that people have gone through, can affect their psyche. And bring hurt to them that could last longer than it should, much less stuff that should have never been inflicted in the first place. Now, I could be realistic. With my situation, the things I know, all I will say is hurt people. Some folks went through their shit, and it unfortunately lashed out on me in a particular way. And people can grow and other type of stuff and be other types. Like, I had some folks ask me, well, who the hell did this? Like, I had some of my people from Rutgers, like, almost get mad at me because I didn't tell about it. I was like, I had to confront the shit myself before I could even get to another point. By the time I confronted with it myself, it was irrelevant. In terms of the individual, it was the act. And the act happens to so many different types of folks, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And with Leslie's situation, I mean, I read other interviews from her and stuff before. And, she definitely has had some dudes be fucked up to her. Or whatever. And we got to look at, even on her career trajectory, she just really started recently blowing up. So you talk about somebody who really didn't get a certain foothold to like damn near their late 40s. Like they working and other shit or whatever, but as somebody who is a creative, and this is not to be on some arrogant shit, this is some real life shit. If you're ahead of the curve on certain levels, everybody doesn't understand that.
That's right.
You know what I mean? If you're just there like, yo, this shit's going to be a thing and it's going to work and it's going to blow up, you're going to have a bunch of folks look at you like you're crazy. Or act like you're crazy. And if the person is fucked up, they'll try to use that as leverage to make you feel bad so they can have more power over you. Like, anybody who's been creative, have you ever been in a bad relationship where somebody's been there like, well, if you weren't doing this little thing, things could be whatever. I can say I have. Straight up and down. That's why them niggas ain't in my life now. You know what I mean? Real talk. Because after a while, you get to a point in life where you know what you can and can't tolerate. But
that's right.
Like, her story to me just parallel on so many levels. I'm just there like, think about it. You got this big 6'2" chick, at least 6 feet tall chick. Talk about, I'm going to be a comedian, I'm going to write for folks, I'm going to blow up. You know, they still working and doing other things. They aren't like, you know, being a fuck about. But you got folks like, all right, whatever. Anyway, I'll take that residence and that check, though, but I'm going to still try to treat you like shit so I can feel like more of a man or whatever else. Or vice versa, for some women who ain't shit, they're going to diss a dude half to death, but they're still taking their resources, mental, physical, and otherwise, until they feel they can quote-unquote do better. That shit can wear down on you, you know? On top of just like the...
No, I definitely could do
on top of the casually... On top of the casually fucked up shit people can say. Or insinuate.
And also, I just want to interject something real quick, is that you have there's a lot of women who are starting to look outside the box that was placed on them for centuries. So, and I think creative women are some of the more dynamic women, you know, that there are. And so, and that she's over 6 feet, you know, and that she's dark skinned. And I think that those combinations of, you know, being strong-willed and being creative and being, you know, dark and being, big for a woman, you know what I'm saying? For some men, that's a lot. And, and I think the mental thing is whatever also. I think that's more or less the main thing. And I personally feel human beings aren't getting better, you know. And, you know, when people talk about new generations or whatever, I just don't believe that. So, at the end of the day, we can't stop people from being dirtbags, but we can affect how we respond to those things. And I think that's very important that people.
Well, I definitely think that's a huge thing. And I also think at times too, like when we relate stuff like this, a big thing is to not get bitter. One person or maybe even a few people's bullshit does not define everybody. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes, because you know of a whole bunch of shit after a while. I mean, you might get into a certain point or whatever. And that's more for you to have to grow from. I can say I had that happen to me. I definitely know there's dudes that had that happen to them because, you know, these things affect you, you know? But I think we had to get to the point of being there, like, if for nothing else, for one's own sanity, we had to grow from it. And I think I'm a little more of an optimist than you are from our life experiences together, knowing each other for so long. But I'm an individual. I always believe that if a person wants to grow, they can.
I agree with that.
And even with the story I just told, what I know about this individual now, they have grown significantly from the period of time when this situation I just brought up occurred. If anything, they would probably be the type from if they even run into my shit one day. If they probably see the article or write up or whatever, they would probably be there like, damn, that was fucked up. Who's the nigga who did that? And I would just almost have to laugh to myself. You know? But I would also have to be happy because that means they aren't the same fuckboy they were beforehand when they did that and stuff. And there's plenty of people who did do fuckboy or fuckgirl things who grew up, you know. And the situation I brought up was, I think, on the lower end of the scale, but it is a situation that could fuck people up because it's a residual type of thing instead of like, you know, somebody who just yells at you and does whatever or hits you or does something else that's physically assaulty or whatever. As one of the podcasts I listen to, The Read, one of their hosts, Crystal, always says this thing always has this phrase called words mean things. And when you say cruel ass shit, that does mean something. Even if it's said in a nice way, even if it's said mellow, even if it's just said casually, you don't know how the shit you take is going to hit somebody. And so a statement like what was said to me, I mean, there's not really too many ways you can be nice about it, but it wasn't the, oh, bitch, you ugly, why you, whatever. It's like, they're like, you know, it was just how effortlessly the shit was said that jacked me up. And when you have things like that build up through the years on top of the people who are blatantly cruel and jacked up, because you're not tall enough, you're not this particular color tone, oh, you're only making, you know, 30 to 40 grand a year, whatever other bullshit thing there is, it can wear you down emotionally. And at the end of the day, the main thing we're in resonance with is what's going on in our head, you know. And if you don't want to have people be jacked up to you, don't be jacked up to others. Like the situation here, again, the individual themselves is not important, but would I be mad if I ever received a genuine apology for what happened? No, I wouldn't be. But I wouldn't even know if somebody even thinks about that. I think what we're in this age right now is that we got people who are trying to be at least a little more aware of what they do. Maybe a little younger than by the time they get to their 30s and 40s. And while sometimes, even from my end and my perspective, that might just seem a little too sensitive and whatever, it's overall good because there's more people who are at least trying to not have to go through that shit or spread that shit to other people who are in their teens and their 20s and sometimes 30s and older. You know, there's stuff that people, when they get older, they might not have to deal with in the realms of manipulation with that. Because those type of things could be used in a manipulative way too. Like, oh, you're not attractive enough or you're not rich enough or whatever, but, you know, I guess I'll take your ass. You ain't got to guess shit. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you and your, as you say, fuck you and your mammy or whatever the fuck else. You know what I mean? Nah. Nobody needs to go through that. And, yeah, like, again, I think overall the thing is people should be able to express these feelings while it's not getting stuck in them. You know, we're in an age where I think people are finally realizing the entire I gotta be stoic to get by shit is some bullshit. That was really some old slavery shit. You know, like, you know, animals ain't supposed to have, you know, feelings and emotion and shit. You're just supposed to do this work. And black men and black women, we ain't fucking animals. We're human beings, you know what I'm saying? You know, for some we're elevated above that, but we are definitely at bare minimum human beings, and we can have these feelings and acknowledge them so we can process them to not deal with certain shit again, you know, to not have that shit hit us as hard if it occurs, or if heaven forbid, if you're deeper into some things than you may want to be, because that happens, it really does. You can be here like, you know what, nope, my switch is turned off, this shit is toxic, fuck it, and keep it moving. You know, because while things are going to hurt or whatever, if sometimes you have to cut something off, it's way better to cut that shit off early before you get gangrene and shit in your brain of like fucked up feelings and emotions.
No doubt. All philosophy, all religion, all mathematics, all things are dealing with high sciences of the mind and of the spirit in this plane of existence. Were pioneered by, formulated by, planned by, and originated with dark-skinned black people. So, her type is one of the older types. The oldest type is the shorter black person. But basically, it's the same aspect in the sense of it's the same, basically from the same genetic strain. So, I said all that to say is that we are able to do things that, we are the gods of this planet in the sense of the low-level gods. So we are able to do certain things. And it's just a lot of us, because of false education, false teaching, deeducation, we are starting late with this. This knowledge I'm talking is knowledge I should have known in my teens. Mm-hmm. That's how it was in the ancient world. But see, we're starting off balance. So, and Mary said the comment about we being stoic. Stoic was something that was applied or was a strand of Greek philosophers, and which is akin to what I'm saying in the sense that they took the knowledge of the ancient individuals and maybe and when it wasn't properly interpreted, and that's why that term comes from them in the sense of it being like maybe a false interpretation of the information, and you may be denying things, you don't understand them or whatever. But as far as on that's why I'm about learning more, just so I can have know just of what's going on, but also just the science of the mind. Because like I said, we can't stop people from being assholes. I mean, black people were involved in building the pyramids without extraterrestrial involvement or without slavery. So that meant we were doing something. Some of the blocks in the Grand Pyramid of Giza and Giza Plateau in Egypt, that some of them weigh, and all the blocks weigh over a ton. And they're fitted in very well where there's nothing that can fit between them. Not even a freaking pin can fit between them. Those were high science, high level Negroes. And I said all that to say that it's not gonna be easy, and we're starting late. So most of us are used to hanging out, getting drunk Friday, Saturday night, bump grind, and buy everything was fly and everything was defined on the outside. That's what America, Western civilization, and that's what the world is like. And so it's a mental battle, and we can take back our minds because most people aren't thinking about stuff that they don't get from social media, TV, or the media, which means that they don't even have their own thoughts. We have to recapture our minds, bottom line. And some of that might have to become you cutting off of social media. I ain't big on social media because I thought it was something funny in the beginning. That you can go on Google and find out stuff about people. That's weird to me. You know what I'm saying? And just the whole thing and just, it ain't what people thought it was. Oh, they go to college or whatever, and then, or whatever, you meet somebody from whatever, this like romantic novel style connect thing, and it just, it was a false it was propaganda to, for people to stress themselves out. You know what I'm saying? And find and spend money to find on illusions, so they can feel better about all the while not understanding why they exist. We don't understand why it exists, and we're gonna take it out through pain medication or through paying for stuff or going on trips or doing things that are based upon satisfying the outside of us, while not dealing with the inside of us, which will still be good or bad wherever we go. So you're gonna need to stand and deliver where you're at and get and be around the right people so they can feed you good vibes, not good vibes and good words, and to kind of keep you in balance and equilibrium. Because it's definitely hard to do that alone. You know what I'm saying? And and don't be distracted by what you see, because there's a lot. Because all these fine women that you see on TV, a lot of them men are doing whatever they can, because it's the fact that I'm able to hook you, makes you feel like I'm the man. So most of them women ain't getting that. So I mean, shit, Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce and making records about it. So you know, and she's considered a fine woman. So and that's projected out, you know. So if that can happen on that level, or to women that look on that level, then it's gonna happen. You know, it's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, it ain't about what it is. It's not about the looks. It's about what's inside. For them to respect you enough to violate and to take it there.
No doubt. And that's a whole thing too, you know what I mean? Because when we talk about all this type of stuff, it's not about, and I know I had to keep harping on it because I just think it was a big part of this story. It's not just a look thing. It's a perfect situation you brought up with the, you know, the Beyonce Jay-Z joint. The entire PR thing was they're this perfect couple. And their past few cycles was pretty much about how their relationship was rocky as fuck for a period of time because people were fucking around. You would just be there like, oh, this is like one of the biggest pop stars in the game. Love or hate, it's just true. Two of the biggest pop stars in the game married to each other, you know, came up from certain levels of not having money and poverty to being, you know, rich as balls. I think together they're billionaires and all this other type of shit, you know. You know, Beyonce's definitely pretty as shit, all that type of stuff. And you still had people like whatever. They still had regular ass people problems like you and I do. And other scenarios. And folks who thought that they could violate and stuff could be cool until things got to a certain point. To where she got to a point where it was just there like, yo, I will leave your funky ass. I mean, that's pretty much what the Beyonce and Lemonade albums are. And Jay-Z realizing that, holy shit, I could really be blowing something for nothing, which was what 444 was about. Or whatever. And, you know, different interviews and stuff they had afterwards. Like, people get to a weird point where I think they, especially like if you're not in a certain place after a while, they keep pushing limits until it's too late. Like, have you ever had what you felt was a friendship or acquaintanceship or relationship breakup and people didn't really try to get at you until they realized that you were done?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where they're like, yo, they really might not come the fuck back. Or they're not coming back. And it's like a performative type of thing. It's not like, okay, I'm really trying to change and make some shit happen. It's wow, I lost something, but let me try to do the bare minimum to try to get you back in. And whatnot. And that's almost worse than you just not being ain't shit and keeping it moving. But at least for me. At least that's how my personality type is. Because I've dealt with that before. And it's really fucking irritating. Where it's like, oh, well, now I'm sorry. I was like, you're sorry because I ain't say a fucking thing to you for 8 months plus. Because I told you I was done. Because I'm a give a chance person until you fuck up. You know what I'm saying? When you really, really fuck up, I just cut you off. But, Anyway, it's one of those things where I think people sometimes almost want to push the limit to see how much your heart can take, but I think a lot of that is because of fucked up societal things. You know what I mean? Because again, nobody's perfect. Isn't trying to say that, you know, there's supposed to be a Prince Charming and a queen and all this other type of shenanigans. It's just that both of y'all need to be able to try. And some people don't try, or they just think that everything's going to eventually come up roses and be okay until it's not. I mean, I know old ass relatives talk about people from back in the day they fucked up with decades ago. Because they were a dumbass. And they realized certain things. I know you know some people too.
Oh yeah. You know? I definitely got some men in my family that talking about some women that they did wrong and that how they whatever. And I know one situation where he ran up on his sister again on Facebook and she had cancer. And cancer, most cancers, not all of them, but a lot of them are associated with the mind first. Because a lot of times, you know, especially if it's not necessarily something from what you eat, a lot of that will come from the mind being in a certain place to allow for the mind to be in a certain place for the DNA to become weakened. So therefore, all this stuff to start happening. So it's going to be about the mind at the end of the day. And I remember seeing, and I remember, I'm actually talking about my oldest brother. And I remember her when I was a kid, and I remember she just was just so loving and like one of them, like, you know, like was, you know, just like a puppy dog almost, like the type of affection. And he's not running into nobody like that no more. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, she was good, before you had sex with her, let alone because she liked how you had sex, so therefore she was good. She was just good, period. And so, I've definitely, run into, I've known some cats who were like that, you know what I'm saying? And not knowing necessarily, and a lot of people, you're a food source for them. So it's like that taking to see how much you can take or whatever. A lot of that is that they get off on seeing, you like revolve around them, or be stressed over them. It's like when people are arguing with you and they got a smirk on their face. There's this arguing and this whatever, and they got like a smile on their face. And it's like, okay, somebody's getting something from that. You know what I'm saying? And just so much to the this and the that. And we have to get our minds right, because if we don't have our minds right and our emotions right, we might not be emotionally or mentally strong enough for good people when they come around. And mentally, emotionally, that's something that doesn't necessarily you have to go through as much, like maybe attaining an education, like, a degree. That's something that you can deal with on your own time, you know what I'm saying? And so, because you definitely, and a lot of that will come with having experiences. So like that experience you're talking about, a lot of that will make you look at the next experience even different, and that's what a lot of street cats know, is that, besides people doing nasty things, is that people saying a lot of nasty things, mean-spirited things. So, if you're not, that's something that people have to get used to, and then get used to the fact that people are mean, and you can, some situations it might be a physical, some situations, you might be having something over your ears and you can't even hear people, or some situations you might address people about why they say do whatever. Some situations you might be ignoring people, at the end of the day, it's going to be about your mind and how, and your mind being right to also not attract negative, and also to be able to combat it, when it arrives. And, the loved ones and the proper understanding on just certain basic things, I think, will help individuals better get through. Because, I believe the world is getting worse, and there's the potential for it to be better. There's the potential, but, not everybody who's expected to take the high road is taking the high road. Not everybody who you would think would take the high road would take the high road. Now, some people who you didn't think were going to take the high road is taking the high road. And really, it's all about really people. It's really the forces that are against love are about chaos. So it don't matter what you believe in. If you believe in chaos and disrupting things, that destabilizes the order that does exist. And the order that would be needed for human society, period. Because it doesn't, mob mentality, crowd mentality, a lot of times can go either way, and that's just you have to have that individual thing, because that's something that goes with the wind, and our mind and our conscience can be like a pendulum. Are you going left or right, or are you in the center? You know what I'm saying? Hot, cold, mad, happy. You can be in the center and then have, a way that it was taught that it could be. Some people, that's whatever, because they gave up, and they're, mice and glue. They're like a mice in a glue trap. They can't even move. They're stuck in that existence. And because of how they think, they are stuck. But it's feeling emotions and going through emotions, but understanding that you do not have to have havoc going on within your own head, though. You can control that. It's not going to be like a 1-2 light switch action. It's going to be, individuals training their minds and putting their minds on certain things, because a lot of times before emotions come, there are thoughts. Thoughts are things. Thought is an energy field, an energy wave. So you can dissipate that before it becomes an emotion, and you start to emotionalize things. Oh, well, he said so and so. Okay, then, well, they're stupid, and they don't know anything about God, or and hate the opposite sex. Mm-hmm. So a person like that, you can't even take that from them anyway. They just saying stuff because they're mad or they're hurt or they're confused, so they're lashing out because of that reality. So you take that with a grain of salt or / ignore it.
No doubt.
And just realize that there is an assault on the mind from non-human forces and then human forces, and that's just a reality. And then we have to do we have to do to defend ourselves from that.
No doubt. And I think that's a lot of this stuff in the end, you know what I mean? Because certain stuff we're going to go through and all of that. But I think a lot of this is trying to grow from and avoid certain things as much as possible, and maybe, help somebody else not go through the shit we went through. Like, maybe I'm naive, but I personally think that's parenthood. In its best way. Like, you have your parents who want to try to protect you from certain shit, so that you hopefully don't go through the same fuck-ups they did, or at least the level of fuckery they did. And, keep that forward. This ain't trying to say we trying to be your parents and shit. We ain't got no kids and no shit like that. But, maybe some of the stuff that we're relating and talking about can, help folks out, I mean, this situation that Leslie and a bunch of these rich folks have gone through, and the people we think are famous and are shielded from, happens to people all the time, and it's almost like inter-community pain when you get to talk to like some of this black shit, you know what I mean? In regard to somebody always has a constant level of what you should be instead of somebody who digs you for who you are. Because ultimately a relationship that's healthy is about more than the physical. I mean, I ain't going to act like, if I get into a romantic relationship, I'm not going to have something physical going on. But, even if we don't have that type of relationship, I'm not going to treat you like shit because, you don't got, I don't know, a 6-pack and, abs and booty of steel or shit like that. Who the fuck cares? You could be shitty and have all of that. You know what I mean? And
when people get older, things start to look different. So if you're growing old with people, things are not going to be the same. So therefore, it was always going to be about a heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul, mind-to-mind thing. In the end, it was going to be like that, which meant it was supposed to be like that in the beginning. And of course, it couldn't have been the trappings or the other things that accompany with us living in this physical realm. But when people start getting old or when people start getting sick, and I used to have, that's another knowledge I remember certain old folks connected for me would talk about is people start acting funny when you get sick. Oh, okay, you're whatever, like, oh, well, you got sick, so therefore it's like, that lets you know you made a wrong choice. Because, it's not, if they were really there, they're still going to want to be, connected with you. Now that's easier said than done, because if you're with somebody and they're not able to have sex no more, that's a hard one. So I don't necessarily want to use that example because I know that would be one that would ultimately come up, so, but love is, like with the scripture reading, perfect love casts out fear. So, when if a person loves you, they'll be able to be seen publicly with you. So people that want to be seen, they didn't have that love for you. So if they didn't have that love for you, then you can't go down that road with them. They didn't want to give you that respect that you felt that you've been. Therefore, that they don't have that type of their love is bound by fear. So that's not your fault. That's you living in a wretched world and you not necessarily really understanding the world you're coming into. So therefore you're having insecurities. You know, this world is not like that. And so therefore you have to realize that you still are the shit. But it's just, most of the people have chosen to take the low road, which is the road that the negative force, the road that the evil forces want you to take. Which is like they said in the Matrix, use your ass as a food source and as a battery. You know, the Matrix shit is real. You know, and the ancients said it was real before the movie came out. So the aspect of our world very much being affected and they're needing our mind energies. They're needing us because we don't understand that we're powerful in that way, that we are a commodity in some ways to, human beings and the non-human beings to be able to use and manipulate to bring about, what other people want. But simply put, it's just you have to control your mind. Because there's somebody that wants it. And for you to be able to realize that it don't matter what people say or what they do, if it's like, when somebody, you didn't steal, somebody's accusing you of stealing. Mm-hmm. So they keep accusing you of stealing, you're going to say that you stole? You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. If they, you're not whatever, but I know that ain't true. So then you have to hold your ground. It's just that simple.
No doubt. And I think ultimately with all of this, we just got to learn the lessons from it. Maybe because I've been reading a whole shitload of political things lately. There's a term that is called Praxis. And a lot of folks who are on the socialist tip use it in general, plus it's just a general terminology in terms of the process of which a theory, lesson, or skill gets to be enacted, embodied, or realized. And, a lot of folks look at it in regards to engaging with or practicing various ideas, philosophies, so forth and so on. And I think a lot of times we look at that on a technical level instead of looking at it in terms of how we interact with life. And one of the parts of us interacting with life is how we let stuff affect us emotionally or, in the heart. You know what I'm saying? So when we deal with stuff like this, it's about what really affects our heart and how we flow and function. And, some shit ain't supposed to get up in that bitch at all. And if it does end up scratching you or cutting you or whatever, you got to have that shit, heal up and then make sure that more bullshit don't come at you. And in a way that's going to be detrimental, you know what I'm saying? Like, some things are going to try to attack you because we're just in that type of world, but it's pushing the shit away, So when we have stuff like that, we can have feelings and other type of thing, but it's not going to be to the point where, like, maybe would cripple us, like maybe back in our teens, 20s, and hell, maybe even 30s, depending on how certain shit went or whatever. It's about us going ahead and learning the lessons and trying to pass on those lessons to others through our own life actions, much less, those who we're actually close to or whatever. So at the end of the day, everybody can deal with less shit. It really won't affect you as much, or maybe to the point at all, where it's just they're like, yeah, I might feel a twinge or two, but I'm not desperate. I'm not clutching on to everything. I'm not still holding on to the falsehoods that society has given me. That doesn't mean I don't want to have a boo, That doesn't mean that, if a coupling or whatever happens, I'm going to be displeased or unhappy, but I got to be good and happy with myself, Because ultimately, regardless, you're in your own head. You got your own things you got to do or whatever. And the beauty of life is that, whether it's friends, acquaintances, family, and more to the potential of a significant other, everybody can be complimentary on the plane that you're on and vice versa, And that's that. So we got a nice little convo out of that. That's why we talking on the phone and got the recording. So it's good that folks were near the Skype today. And all of that. But man, shout out to Leslie Jones, man. Again, I think it was dumb brave of her to put that shit out there. And to also counteract with, hey, it was a feeling, you know what I'm saying? I just want to put that out there, but everything is cool, but I'm not going to deny that I have these feelings. And again, I think it was really good because I had almost forgot about that because the way the news cycle and like life has been this past week, that she brought up the colorism situation with Beyonce's Pops. Because in a way, that type of thing happens more often than people may want to admit in the modern age. You knew what's happening when that cat was young in like, the 60s or 70s or whatever. But that shit still happens right now. And
no doubt.
That's not cool at all. I mean, this ain't trying to say that you can't be attracted to somebody of a different skin tone. I mean, that's retarded. But not because, oh, well, as closer as they are to white, that means that's what's up. Nah, motherfucker, no. And then the whole opposite extreme.
And if you are,
go ahead, sorry.
And if you're black in the Latin world, you should just stay black. You know what I'm saying? If you're black in the Latin world, don't want to get lightened. You know what I'm saying? Stay black and stay on the right course, because nobody from there is really going to be representing the truth for you as far as on your blackness.
No doubt. And speaking of, random side note, I got to shout out Cardi B because she had an interview and she talked about essentially, like she straight up said, obviously I'm black. I just acknowledge my side of the Caribbean too, but of course we're all black people. It's a very short summation, but she did a really good breakdown about the shit. And I mean, I don't necessarily think the chick is dumb or whatever. Don't get that fucked up. But she broke it down in a way I was pretty impressed. But I'm also just there like, okay, you got somebody from the right side of that, from the New York City metro area, who had you embrace the African diaspora side of you, like it ain't shit. But you got the other part too, because sometimes that shit could be very unique, depending on the type of individual you're dealing with. So folks representing the Latin side of the diaspora and more, as the Black Cause said, embrace that black shit. There ain't nothing to be ashamed of. It's cool as fuck, you know what I'm saying? That's why a bunch of people try to shut all of us down, regardless of whichever slave master took us and dropped us off in these different lands right now, and all of that. But anyway, man, yeah, I'm gonna end up uploading this tonight because I'm just already up right now. Fuck it. You guys will get the nice, long show within the next day. And as always, FuseBoxRadio.com is our official site. BlackRadioIsBack.com. If y'all want to leave commentary and feedback on this and more, you can do it through those sites or through all the wonderful podcast apps and stuff you can tag us up with. And yeah, thank you guys, and we'll be in check later. FuseBox Radio, bringing the balance back to Black Radio since 1998, y'all. And a little bit of bonus talk. All right, peace.
Peace.
You can listen to the FuseBox Radio Broadcast via iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Podcast Addict, and your other favorite podcast players. Check out the FuseBox Radio's official website for our latest episodes, events, and more at FuseBoxRadioOnline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook at Facebook.com/FuseBox Radio Show, Twitter at Twitter.com/FuseBox Radio, and Instagram at Instagram.com/FuseBox Radio. Feel free to contact us at FuseBoxRadio@gmail.com to submit music for airplay consideration,